Now, when I say Romeo and Juliet, who comes to mind? Dana?
Claire Danes.
That's right, Claire Danes. Who else?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right? Who else? Well, you know, someone else was involved in that movie who in some ways is as famous as Leonardo DiCaprio. And his name's William Shakespeare. And some great movies are based on his plays. Hamlet. West Side Story. Talented Mr. Ripley. Waterworld. Gladiator. Chocolat.
Mr. Burke, as you know, my boyfriend drowned in a surfing accident. I don't think I can handle Romeo and Juliet right now, emotionally.
Tanya Ablani died a year ago.
Well, sometimes it takes decades to recover from a tragedy like this.
You only went out with him for 2 weeks.
Hello and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. I'm Alex.
I'm Julio, and thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, head over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Help promote the algorithm and spread the word.
You can also find us on SoundCloud to subscribe and review. And don't forget to visit our main website, wearethecontrarians.com.
Follow us on Twitter at Contrarian Prime, and to like us on Facebook, visit facebook.com/Contrarian Prime.
And if you have the willpower to keep up with our pretentious ramblings, you can follow us individually at Contrarian Alex for myself and at Ovnio for Julio. That's OVNIO.
Now, time for the podcast. All right, now we are recording for Contrarians Corner on Shakespeare in Love.
Hello and welcome back to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by Julio, here in the second episode of our awards season, the peaks and valleys of the awards given out in Hollywood.
From the Razzies to the Oscars.
Yeah, all that.
An American Journey.
All that good stuff. We're here today to tackle a movie that has come up quite often on our podcast, if you've listened to it throughout the years, and also just in conversation if you've ever talked to me about Best Picture winners and the good, the bad, and the ugly of that, and the proverbial minefield that comes along with that discussion.
The good, the bad, the ugly, the delightful, and the horrifying.
The rompous.
The discouraging.
The dark side of the awards season. Yeah, Shakespeare in Love. That's what we're here to talk about today. 1998, John Madden's film. Not the football announcer, not to be mistaken. Common mistake. With a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. This thing took the Oscars by storm the year it was released. I believe it won 7 Oscars in total. We'll get a bit more into that in the Real Talk portion of our podcast. Here with the first portion is Contrarians Corner. Now, being this is a 92%, what we'll do here is kind of break down the plot of the movie, but also, as we always like to say, rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine here in the first portion. So we will make a case of why those 92% are wrong.
Why the Academy was wrong.
And there will be more on that in the second part of the podcast. But being that it's 92% means a whole hell of a lot of people liked it.
Yes.
Julio.
92% of critics.
What were those
fresh tomatoes?
What were those juicy red tomatoes saying?
With just a couple of quotes. We got Philip Kemp from Sight and Sound, who said, "A rich but satisfying plum pudding."
All right.
Is that like Shakespearean jargon?
I think he was just trying to name a dish that would have been, the bee's knees at the time. Now it would be, a Big Mac, because that's what we serve in the White House.
A rich and satisfying Big Mac.
A rich and satisfying smorgasbord of fast food.
Karina Montgomery from Sin Arena says, "Shakespeare in Love is a delight on every level of moviegoing. This is why people go to the movies." I mean, you don't go to the movies very often, Alex, so maybe that's why you just can't
There
connect
needs to be
with
more
it.
Shakespeare in Loves, yeah.
And finally, Richard Corliss from Time Magazine says, "Let the kids toy with the Rugrats and hold their Sandler high. Shakespeare in Love is a movie to please the rest of us." I always enjoy these quotes that feel the need to take a swipe at other movies.
Especially of those that have nothing to do with the genre that this is.
Adam Sandler versus Shakespeare.
Rugrats. Like, why would you take your kids to see Shakespeare in Love in the first place?
I like the Sandler one because it's more ridiculous.
It's clearly who was that? What was his name?
That was Richard Corliss. That's a famed critic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Time Magazine. Yeah, that's fucking clearly a case of just he's bitter that Adam Sandler made as much money as he did in 19. That would have been The Waterboy. So he's probably angry that made so much money, and so he wants to.
And that nobody was paying attention to Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah. Why not just say Shakespeare in Love is good?
I mean, if you're saying Shakespeare in Love is better than Adam Sandler movie, you're not setting the bar too high to begin with. So
who are you arguing with? Like, who's your target audience with that?
Him and his wife had this spat right before he sat down to write that article. He's like, I'll fucking show her.
And when the review came out and she read it, she just looked over and he was going, mm-hmm.
Time Magazine, baby. Where's your article?
All right, so Shakespeare in Love, based in 1953, is about William Shakespeare.
Young William Shakespeare.
Despite this being, like, with full lines of his plays recited in this, nowhere in it does it give, like, credit to William Shakespeare.
Well, that's because this movie, if you're to believe it's bullshit, this movie, one of its theses is that Shakespeare didn't come up with anything.
Touché.
Everybody's giving him ideas and lines. Every single line that's uttered is either something that his lover said or his producer said or something he overheard as he was walking down the street. At one point, Philip Marlowe just tells him, hey, how about the plot is this? And he just steals it.
Yeah, so that's fair.
He doesn't get a credit in a movie for that.
He's Mark Zuckerberg.
Marlowe is, why don't you call it, drop the V. It's not the Romeo and Juliet.
Just Romeo and Juliet. It's much cleaner. Yeah, we're in London. William Shakespeare, played by, I already forgot the Fiennes' first name, Joseph Fiennes.
The dollar store Fiennes.
Yeah, the affable younger brother of Ralph Fiennes, Rafe Fiennes, however you want to say it.
Ray Fiennes was playing Nazis and important stuff at this time of his career.
Yeah, bad dude, and his brother, who the fucking Dollar General, Colin Farrell here.
He's the Casey Affleck to Ray Fiennes' Ben Affleck.
I don't know, man, because even Casey Affleck has,
Has a career.
yeah, and a not so punchable face. A career, that's true too, man. Yeah, Fiennes after this,
Done.
It might have been real poison at the end. So Will Shakespeare is a playwright for Geoffrey Rush, who plays Henslow. Essentially, Henslow is in debt to Tom Wilkinson, who runs the local theater, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he's buddy-buddy with Shakespeare, and Shakespeare writes plays for him, so he needs him to write a new one. We go through this fucking, 20-minute opening of this to just figure out, basically the gist of it is, this guy needs a play, he needs it written by Shakespeare, but Shakespeare has writer's block.
Yeah. Also, Geoffrey Rush is acting.
Yes.
He's
With a capital A.
He's just
C-T-I-N-G.
full on Looney Tunes in this one. Everybody has funny accents because they're not just doing British accents; they're doing British Shakespearean accents.
Mm-hmm.
But Geoffrey Rush is just like fucking Bugs Bunny playing the piano there. It's just so over the top. Really, really going for that. I mean, this is after he won the Oscar, right? He already won the Oscar for Shine. So he's got his eyes on another nomination at least. Did you ever find out? I asked you while we were watching it. Did he get it?
He did. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. We'll go again. I'm trying to save a bit of the Oscar talk for part D. But yeah, he's here to show the world. He's here to steal the show. The opening, he's getting tortured. It's like a fucking Bond movie, and Tom Wilkinson's the bad guy.
Geoffrey Rush is unlike Joseph Fiennes. I will not disappear after my one breakout role.
Yeah, similar to Leo and Titanic. Joseph Fiennes was the only one that didn't get nominated for something in this.
I'm Destiny's Fool.
So he's got writer's block. He talks to, I assume, is supposed to be a psychologist locally, something like that.
A master of the occult / psychologist.
Yes, and he explains to him. He basically asks, when's the last time you got your dick wet, buddy? And he's like, that could be part of it. You need a flame, a muse. You need something to get your fire going, something to start your desire. And he is on again, off again with Rosaline, who's
somebody's Not wife, right? It's
According to Wikipedia, the mistress of Richard Burbage,
so that's the other guy, the guy that owns the other theater.
the rival theater.
Yeah, but she was
In this small town where there's literal animal shit in the middle of the road, they still have 2 theaters, goddammit.
a step ahead from Denton.
Hey. Watch it now.
Yeah, they have their AMC and their Regal.
Competing bids, but no woman is allowed in either of them, on stage at least. Hugh Fennyman is the name of Tom Wilkinson's character, but for all intents and purposes, he will just be Tom Wilkinson.
On the other hand, the other guy, we don't know.
Yeah.
So he's just the other guy that owns a theater.
Yes, that's exactly it. The current play that's in the works, according to Henslow, is Romeo and Ethel, the pirate's daughter, which doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well as, say, Romeo and Juliet.
That was just Shakespeare was, I don't know, going to the bathroom and he overheard the servant talking about pirates, and that's just why he came up with the title. Because that's all he has.
Mm-hmm. Just making it up off the top of his head.
That's what he does according to this movie.
It's like a Muppets movie, but nowhere near as charming.
Well, the entire thing in this movie also is just, listen, now you can talk to any serious writer, any actual writer, and they're going to tell you writer's block is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Writer's block just means that you just don't want to write, and you come up with inane excuses, right? Oh, the muse didn't visit me or whatever. This movie celebrates that. It actually encourages young writers. Look, even Shakespeare had writer's block.
Yeah.
All you need to do was adultery, fixed it.
Find a lady or a man. There's some confusion in as far as Shakespeare goes in the what he's looking for realm. But Viola de these fucking names. Viola de Lesseps.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Thank you. I do have respect for British literature and these things, but I would not trust myself to be one to read an actual Shakespearean play. So Gwyneth Paltrow is present. She's the daughter of a wealthy merchant. Essentially, she's a big fan of Shakespeare. She's been to his plays numerous times and has the desire to act. It begins with the words. So I guess it's the talk of the town because there's really not much going on. All that happens here is what happens at these 2 theaters. And the
even
bar.
the Queen.
Yeah. The fucking Queen of England, Judi Dench. And these plays must be pretty short because she's only around this movie for 6 minutes total. Gwyneth Paltrow enjoys these plays, wants to act, wants to be in it, so has her nurse at her mansion or palace basically gets in on it. She's kind of like her guardian angel throughout this. It's a nurse, right?
Yeah, she calls her nurse. I don't know if she actually has a degree.
Well, at this point in time, we learn that she's kind of there to help her out with her zany schemes throughout the movie. So that's the significance of bringing her up. But what she does is she helps bind her breasts and tie her hair up and places a wig and like a fucking Groucho Marx facial hair on her. And so she can go and audition for this play, or so she can act in it, because she auditions like just in like a fucking on. Dick Tracy hat on. And
Shakespeare's fooled.
Yeah. What? She looks like Rose from Titanic. Like, she comes in and her hair is billowing out and she's wearing like a lavender dress and shit. And he's just like, I've never seen this man around town.
Shakespeare's loins burn.
Yes.
Just with the sound of her voice. Yeah, would you say that this is probably the most unbelievable plot element in the entire movie? The fact that Gwyneth Paltrow can't even attempt to pass as a man in this movie.
Yeah, especially like when they're on the riverboat riding together and they're like lusting after each other. That's either Gwyneth Paltrow or an incredibly beautiful man.
Either way.
To your story though, like, for all the convincing that's done, you would think she had visited Harvey Fierstein a la Mrs. Doubtfire and got like a fucking face mold, because it's not that much work. It's like she looks like Simple Jack when he's kidnapped by the internment camp and they put like the top of the broom on his head. That's what she looks like.
Yeah. The thing is that the movie's trying to tell us that this is a real world. For all the zany happenings and going-ons in the 2 hours of movie, you're still supposed to believe that this is happening in the real world. And Shakespeare and no one else really not noticing that Gwyneth Paltrow is a woman. Mm-hmm. That is insane.
Well, and then the movie also does the thing of like, I always make the example, I know I have one here before, how do we make Michael Cera or who do we get that's like slightly more intimidating than Michael Cera? Oh, Jay Baruchel, like fucking Nick and Nora. In this, it's like, let's find a young man who looks very effeminate and just put him next to Gwyneth Paltrow. And it'll just balance. It's like white balancing a shot. Like, you just put it there, and then, it'll balance it out.
I thought you were going to say that they cast Joseph Fiennes. They're like, Ray Fiennes would be too masculine.
I didn't even think of that, but it's absolutely true.
Joseph Fiennes, you can believe that he's confused,
Yes.
sexually confused to where he wouldn't know what's going on.
Or more or less, when they are next to each other, the audience can believe that he buys her as a man. If it's fucking
So he's an idiot.
big, burly, bald Ray Fiennes next to, Gwyneth Paltrow wearing her dad's shoes, like...
But see, that we kind of brought it up when we were watching it, and that is a much more interesting movie. The movie that explores William Shakespeare's kind of indirect alliances with bisexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give it the Oscar just on concept alone.
Yeah.
But instead, they don't even play it as a joke. They just play it as, this is happening. He didn't notice until somebody else told him.
Yeah, it's peculiar. She eventually takes the moniker, or not the moniker, she assumes the identity of Thomas Kent, who's the young, hot startup actor in Hollywood, or London, as it were. And eventually Thomas is given the role of Romeo in this new play. In real life, at like one of their local gatherings, does it even explain what they're doing? Like the first time he sees Viola?
He sneaks into her house.
Is there like a banquet going on or something?
Yeah, there's some sort of dance. I mean, the purpose of that dance is that Colin Firth, which we haven't mentioned yet, but he
was in my next bullet.
Okay. Colin Firth wants to marry Gwyneth Paltrow.
Well, he already just made his intentions clear. In this scene, he does, excuse me.
Right, but the whole purpose of that dance is for him to, I guess, see the goods and decide if he was going to go for it. Because remember, he's asking her
It's like
dad.
the courting, yeah. So, point being of this, it's the first time he sees her, but he's already heard her voice. So the seeds have been planted for the little thing we call love. And he sees her dancing and, is immediately, like, gobsmacked by her.
She's beautiful. She's a good dancer.
Jeffrey Rush has to, like, mop his jaw up off the floor.
She's beautiful. She's a good dancer. And she
if
sounds...
you call what they're doing dancing.
Well, old-timey dancing is more like...
Pulp Fiction, this is not.
Oh, no. But on top of that, she sounds like Master Kent.
She does. So Lord Wessex, the aforementioned Colin Firth, who, man, he can't win one with me recently because he was also the bad guy in Mary Poppins, and that's
really?
the most recent thing I've seen. Yeah, and my God,
do you have a mustache in Mary Poppins?
That's one of these things of like, I don't believe his character's supposed to be like bad or dramatic because everything he does makes me laugh in this.
It's a waste of an actor, misallocation of resources, which we see every now and then when we cover movies here, because you have Imelda Staunton playing the nurse and you have Colin Firth playing the bad guy. Swap them. Imelda Staunton is one of the baddest bad guys in the Harry Potter series. She can play a villain. Colin Firth is just a hot little thing.
Yeah.
You don't buy him as a threat. So swap them.
He's a simple man.
Yeah, make Colin Firth the nurse.
Man, that would have been some pretty heavy political statements for the time, too.
This movie is just a series of missed opportunities.
Lord Wessex, ready to kill because he realizes that Shakespeare has lust in his eyes, lust Shakespeare, pulls a knife on him in the middle of this fucking banquet function, whatever the hell they're doing. I do miss times like that where you could just put a knife to a man's throat at a public gathering and no one would bat an eye at it and just be like, yep, he's taking care of business.
He must have done something.
He deserved it. But we quickly learn, I think it's that night, that Viola and Shakespeare are very attracted to each other and pine for each other's touch. Because of this, the fire picks up not only in the pants, but in the heart and in the brains of William Shakespeare as the writing for his play picks up, and we get a fucking montage set to My Baby Takes the Morning Train while he's going through all these fucking rolls of papyrus and writing shit down.
Old school style.
Yeah, he's got his quill, making the ink himself. It's like an old tattoo artist.
There's also, because when he went and visited his witch doctor, he gave him this... Remember, he gave him a glass serpent, like a bracelet, and he said, write your name on a piece of paper, put it in here, then have a woman wear the bracelet, and that will take care of your problems.
I completely missed that. Is that what Rosaline is wearing?
Right, she's wearing
Okay.
that. And
So the lady of the town, which we quickly established into the film, has no qualms nor quarrels about becoming one with any man
Anyone.
in town. They should have almost played it to a comedic effect, where like the mid-credits scene while We're
She's
Not
wearing,
Gonna
like-
Take It by Twisted Sister plays, and they walk in and it's Ben Affleck having sex with her, and like, what?
she's wearing like 10 bracelets on her arm.
That would have been tremendous. John Madden, for shame, didn't have enough foresight. And then the Who's Right, Mark Norman, which again doesn't surprise me. He didn't see into that. That motherfucker also wrote Cutthroat Island. This movie's got me all kinds of fired up.
This
I
movie
can't speak.
ends with Shakespeare talking about shipwreck and ships and whatever.
He just couldn't let it go.
he was like Shakespeare at the end of this movie. He just started writing that bad boy. Act 1, Gina Davis walks in.
Speaking of Ben Affleck, business picks up as Ned Allen arrives. Alien? I don't
Ben
know.
Affleck.
Ben Affleck, thank you. We'll just refer to them as their surnames. He is, you kind of had to explain this to me, but he's like the hot shit in the theater scene.
He's Daniel Day-Lewis
Okay. He
with an entourage.
I had to look up the character's name because I knew
Maybe he's Vinny.
exactly what it reminded me of. John Lovitz played a character named Llewellyn Sinclair on an episode of The Simpsons called A Streetcar Named Marge, in which it's obviously they're doing a play of A Streetcar Named Desire, but it's all like the local Springfield oafs. So this Llewellyn character is brought in because he's like a bigwig play producer from 2 towns over, and he acts just like Ben Affleck does in this. And like,
Is this the one and only time that we've seen a British Affleck?
God, I would have to say so.
I mean, I understand why.
Yeah.
This should not be repeated ever.
No.
It's not just
First
the accent.
off, he's got a widow's peak that, my God, it makes Jeffrey Rush's facial hair look subtle.
He just looks so out of place. It's not just the accent or even the haircut. He's just so male model-like. Everybody else in the company, they look like actual actors. People
Yeah.
that are starving, having trouble making ends meet, and just, you can see them totally living on the streets, getting in bar fights. Affleck comes in and he's just out of a GQ cover. He's just the guy. It just doesn't mesh well with everything else that's going on with the surroundings. He just looks like he doesn't belong in that movie.
From like an aesthetic standpoint, and also just like he's acting in a different movie than everyone.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
His is the complete opposite of Jeffrey Rush's acting. Rush's is acting all capital letters, and Affleck is acting lowercase and different font.
He's like talking in a British accent that you would like jokingly with your friends. And yeah, but his Boston accent still comes through. So just like, do I make you horny, baby?
He's in an Austin Powers movie.
Apparently. So he's there to basically pull shit together. He's got a part in it. He's not the director, but he's the key.
They leave him in charge at times.
Yeah, because no one's going to question him because he's like the master of the stage. Lord Wessex makes it his intentions known to Viola that he's already cleared it with her dad. He's going to marry her. She doesn't have a say in the matter, but she's got to be inspected by Dame Judi Dench, who plays Queen Elizabeth. Again, another mention of her here on the podcast. And in this movie, her name will come up quite often, way more than she's actually in the movie. So they draw everyone to her castle. Keep in mind, this is when we've already had like several montages of sex going on between Will and Viola, correct?
I think so.
Because isn't this where like Lord Wessex comes to get her to take her to her
Oh
hearing?
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And so
because the thing ends with the queen saying she's not a virgin.
well, and
You
also
fucking idiot.
You dumbass. Takes a woman to know. And then Colin Firth goes, "What?"
He goes, Newman.
But fucking the reason I say is because then this is when it turns into like a fucking Three Stooges gag with Joseph Fiennes. He dresses himself up like a nurse.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Because that's how he gets out of the room. He spent the night at Gwyneth Paltrow's.
Again, what an idiot.
He
He's
spent
there.
the night over there.
The rooster crows. There's all these people surrounding that place that could fucking kill him. He's there naked as the day he was born, and just like, oh, you gonna make some breakfast, babe?
On a story level, I understand because that's basically Romeo and Juliet. It's just about the play itself is about her love making you stupid, and so like so much of of his work according to this movie. Of course, Shakespeare is just taken from his own experiences. So, and he's writing Romeo and Juliet here. But the movie is missing that extra step where it criticizes that behavior. Instead, it's just like, yeah, love makes you stupid. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that what makes love epic and great? That's the final point of the movie, that everything that Shakespeare and Gwyneth Paltrow do in this movie is celebrated.
Yeah.
They cheated on their significant others. They ruined other people's lives, other people's businesses. But that's so cool because that's what great love stories are made of.
So they all go to Queen Elizabeth's house. They're all like, yo, what's up? And they bring Viola to the front. And Queen Elizabeth kind of eyes her up and down and sees if she's fitting to marry Lord Wessex.
Inspects her teeth.
Yeah, they get into some spat about plays because Gwyneth Paltrow likes plays and acting, and this fucking becomes School of Rock and Hamlet 2 and all these other movies where fucking Rock and Roll High School, what you name it, where Judi Dench is just like
all those Judi Dench movies.
She's like, you're too young. You don't know what art is. It's not real. And then fucking Gwyneth Paltrow's like, hey, man, you don't know what us kids are like. You're living in your day. I want my MTV. Tried and true bullshit.
And Colin Firth is caught in the middle.
And he's like chewing his nails just erratically back and forth like a goddamn typewriter. And so what? And then fucking Joseph Fiennes starts like yelling from the back of the room like Mrs. Doubtfire. Hello. And what he fucking somehow coerces the king or queen, excuse me, into getting into some sort of bet about if a play can tell the real story of love, she'll pay him £50.
This
what kind
is
of
why...
fucking bet is that? That's the most subjective ass bullshit I could ever think of. You can't prove that to somebody.
This is why the Great British Empire fell, because the queen was spending her time in this sort of nonsense instead of actually governing.
I'll bet you all of my land you cannot make the greatest cherry pie of all time.
And Shakespeare from...
Damn it!
Shakespeare from the background. Yes, he can.
Yeah, exactly. And again, no one at all is... he's not like Jasmine. He doesn't have this thing tied around like his face. He's holding this fucking napkin up to his face to cover up his nose down. He's like Wilson from fucking Home Improvement. If Wilson walked everywhere with a piece of the fence with him.
The one thing that I guess you could give the movie is that it's consistent, right? In a world
in
where
its badness?
Right. In a world where people can't tell that Gwyneth Paltrow is a woman badly dressed as a man, they wouldn't be able to tell that Joseph Fiennes is a man badly dressed as a woman.
And again, time period is a fair point because like this was a time where if you got like a cold, you were probably going to die. Like
you have
people have
bigger
bigger things to worry about than is the dress blue and black or is it white and gold?
I guess in a way you could argue, and it's a shame that the movie doesn't make this point, that they were far more open-minded back then. They saw a dude dressed as a woman and he said that he was a woman. Okay, he wants to go to the women's bathroom.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Use ye old restroom. So we talked about this. So the whole significance, the reason for the £50 is it would essentially cover his his SAG fee, his application fee into the Writers Guild of London.
He's tired of being a freelancer.
Yeah. And then this becomes some sort of fucking journalistic criticism.
Yeah, he wants insurance because those syphilis visits to the doctor are just getting too expensive.
No shit. That's another thing, man. Just all the fucking raw dogging that went on back then. I can't imagine. Julio and I were watching this. It's like, you ever wonder how bad people smelled back then? And he goes, oh, all the time. So thank you for bringing up the scroll, the bracelet, because I had lost out on the significance of this. Rosaline's man. What's that fucker's name?
The owner of the other theater. The AMC manager.
Yes. The evil local manager. Richard Burbage. He is with his lady, and isn't this when his rival bursts in, Marlowe?
Right.
There's a local playwright that, this is literally just like fucking Happy Days or, any old show that had like the rival part. It's basically they're from Shelbyville for you Simpsons fans. Marlowe's this rival playwright.
Yeah. So he comes in the entire time.
He wrote Romero and Julieta.
No, but he is the guy that tells. There's that bar scene where he basically tells Shakespeare what to write. Shakespeare is going on and on about how he's blocked, and Marlowe goes, "Well, how about you write a play about two young kids from opposing families that fall in love?"
He's the hero from Coco. He just stole all his shit in his whole career.
Shakespeare doesn't even acknowledge it. He just goes, "I just had a great idea. Why don't I write a play?" That's about two rival families. But anyway, Marlowe comes in and basically tells the AMC manager that Shakespeare is not writing a play for AMC, which, he's been paid for, and instead is writing a play for Regal. And the guy gets mad and says, "But I already paid for him."
He went out and shopped it around.
Right.
Yeah.
He optioned it more than once.
He had a juicy story, and he knew he could get it out there. So
his Shakespeare plan was, well, for Regal I'm writing Romeo and Juliet, and for AMC I'm writing Juliet and Romeo.
And Homeboy's pissed because he stops having sex with Rosaline when he's way out kicking his coverage here. She's way better looking than he is. So
also she's cheating on him left and right, so maybe it balances out.
I guess that's true. Yeah, everybody.
Right, because there's at one point where Shakespeare,
it'd be like the
walks
fucking
in
end
on...
of the first Ace Ventura. If she comes out and she's like, I have syphilis. Everyone in town would be like, ah.
Tom Wilkinson, Ben Affleck, the Queen,
the dog running around would be like, that would have to be earlier in the 90s for it to use a joke like that. But so he gets mad, gets up, he throws Rosaline off him, and this guy's day just goes from bad to worse because then the bracelet she has breaks and he sees Shakespeare's name inside of it. So
which really doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't, but he immediately just jumps to conclusions, which again seems pretty common here because people die pretty just erratically.
I mean, like you said, it's a small town.
Yeah.
You gotta get the entertainment or your feuds, your conflict, wherever you can get it. Oh, she was wearing a bracelet with Shakespeare's name. I must kill him.
So he goes and he tries to fight Shakespeare while they're doing a rehearsal of the play, and it's just a big played for laughs segment.
Speaking of the Three Stooges, I mean, I did have the Three Stooges written down as a reference at this moment because it's just a big fight where they're using the props to hit each other, and
it's like the end of Crazy Stupid Love.
Yes, basically Kevin Bacon is like, "Well, it was your play? No, it was my play. No, it was his play."
Through all this, Lord Wessex gets the idea that it's been Marlowe that's been climbing up his soon-to-be bride's chimney. The reason he gets this idea is, like you mentioned, the Queen says, "I don't know what this is a euphemism for. I didn't realize, that this was a euphemism for sex, and I will be using it henceforth." Said, "She's been plucked since I've seen her last, and not by you."
I think you can only use that once, though. I think you're only plucked once.
Oh, okay. So we're under
sorry,
the impression she was a virgin?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
I need to...
You've been plucked and replucked, Alex. You can't use that. You could say, "I feel like I've been plucked once again."
Good Lord. And thinking, because he's a goddamn fucking idiot, Lord Wessex thinking that Shakespeare is actually a nurse, Wilmina, or whatever name he gave her, and asks, has any man doth been around? And he says, "Aye, it was Marlowe." Apparently he's Irish now, but so he tells Marlowe this, and then news gets back that Marlowe's been killed.
Yeah. Shakespeare, our hero, got the guy that gave him the idea for Romeo and Juliet. He got him killed. In a way, it's a perfect crime. Except the movie walks it back later. And so what could have been an
stuck with it, he really would have been the hero from Coco. Marlowe's killed. Obviously, Shakespeare blames it on himself. He goes to church, says 50 Hail Marys.
Falls to his knees in the mud and goes, "What have I done?"
It's true.
He does say, "What have I done?" That's the level of screenwriting at play.
He tries to do it like a bit more like, what have I done? Fuck, what is that?
That's some solid Affleck British accent there.
Yeah. So this the news of Marlowe being killed comes the same night that Viola learns that Will is a married man, because it's after the fight with Rosaline's man Burbage and all that, and then don't they come to some sort of silly agreement or some reconciling, and they all go out drinking together?
No, I don't think they drink together. I think that the winners, Tom Wilkinson's men.
Oh, that's right. They beat their ass and they want to celebrate.
Right,
Yeah,
they want to celebrate. They don't care that they
share
just-
drinks later in the movie.
Right,
Yeah.
no. They destroyed their set and they're going to celebrate, even though Jeffrey Rush is like, oh my God, that's our set.
Yeah. So through this, they think that fucking, Thomas Kent is just one of the boys and says, yeah, Will's got a wife. So Thomas Kent gets very upset and like no one understands why. Everyone's just like, hey, chill out, man. It's all right. He takes off. Shakespeare takes off after him. That's when we learn that Marlowe's been killed.
Even if they knew that even if he was a man or a boy, or if they knew that she was a woman, I think that the reaction would be the same, because in this world, nobody cares about adultery, really, except for the one person that's being cuckolded.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Everybody seems pretty chill with having sex with married people.
Seems like a different, simpler time.
Yeah, back in the day, once I used to work with a guy that was, once or twice I heard him go, I wish we were just like dogs. Dogs, they want to have sex, they just have sex. Whoever
Man.
they walk past, just have sex, and then they move on.
What a dangerous way of thinking.
So, all right, not much going on in your life. I
Yeah,
guess.
for real. Not much going on in your head or heart.
But that's kind of what it's like in Shakespeare times. You want to have sex, make sure that the husband or the wife is not around.
It seems that way. And the other thing is, too, there's definitely no... it's ironic because it was a Weinstein film, but there's no sense of any sort of force or anything like that. Everyone just seems down.
It's pretty consensual.
Yeah, everyone's just down to clown back in the day. And Marlowe's dead. Marlowe's funeral's the next day. Gwyneth Paltrow goes to it thinking that it's Shakespeare's funeral, so she's all distraught. Shakespeare comes in looking like fucking 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, clearly hasn't slept all night, points at Colin Firth, just points at him with the, like, you're next, motherfucker, which makes no sense in context. And then he freaks out, Colin Firth, that is, and gets up and runs out, and he's just screaming, God, forgive me, forgive me. No one in the church reacts to it. No one does anything. It's like this happens at every funeral.
Again, small town. They just figured that's part of some story that's going on. We'll get to it. We'll hear about it, or Shakespeare will write a play about it.
We'll hear about it eventually. Maybe not today, tomorrow, or 9 months from now, but we'll hear about it. So she's happy. He's alive. But through this also, it's kind of buried that Lord Wessex now definitively knows that it's Shakespeare that's been giving it to her. So they go off. We kind of just cut into more of the play. The play is Romeo and Juliet now. It's being finished. They're in the final stages of production. After they wrap one day, Shakespeare and Tom Kent start going at it again. She goes to take the mustache off, and he says, "No, leave it on."
She just shrugs. All right.
And then we get like it pans out, and wherever they're fucking in the bottom of the theater or whatever, there's like holes in the wall, and Pigpen, I don't know the kid's name, but just this dirty bastard that hangs around the theater.
He likes to play with mice. He has rats, mice.
But anyway, he's just doing the old like land ho. He's got one eye through one of the holes and just he. And then of
so
course,
are boobies.
Yeah, he makes sure to stress that, and then he just sells them out for what looks like £1.
So you mentioned Ace Ventura before, so I don't know if you recognize the guy that he sells them out to. Who's what, the Queen's sheriff, some sort of political figure.
That's right. He's in Ace Ventura 2.
Yeah, he's the British guy from Ace Ventura 2.
Good one. Yeah, he seems like the
constable.
Yeah, the number 2, the Smithers to
Yeah.
Lord Wessex's Mr. Burns. So he gets paid off. Wessex rolls up, and actually, this is where Colin Firth, like the only time he looks like an actual badass, because he just rolls up on his fucking horse solo, doesn't he? And he has like a fucking whole cachet of men that will help him out with this, and he rolls up and he just gets off and, throws his cape off and just, Shakespeare, and pulls out his fucking sword and unseats it. And
This is probably the one effective scene in the movie, and definitely the one effective action scene in the movie, because that fight, it goes on for a little bit, but it's kind of, there's stuff happening and you feel finally like there's something at stake.
Yes.
This man definitely wants to kill him.
Yes, but then of course it betrays it when it just turns it into a joke. When
Yeah. Then oh no, it's a prop sword.
yeah, it's a fucking it's one step away from him pulling a gun, and then it's a squirt gun. It's basically what we're looking at here.
But then it also ends with a reveal that makes the movie weaker, because then this is where we find out that it's not Shakespeare's fault that Marlowe died.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a bar brawl. It's really not his fault, and that makes the character a lot less interesting.
Yeah,
I was digging the Shakespeare that looked like shit.
yeah,
The Shakespeare that finally had something come back to haunt him. He's been going around the movie, ruining lives left and right, being really careless about what might happen to others because of his actions. And then when something finally happens, or he believes that something finally happened because of him, well, now he has some depth.
yeah.
And then this movie just walks it back.
So he can be the good guy, and then he immediately says out loud, "I'm freed of it." It's like, what?
Way to show a twinge of regret for the fate of your friend that basically wrote the play for you.
Yeah, and then Colin Firth and all the bad guys. Then the fight's over, and then just like, woman, she's a woman. And up until this point, we've done a pretty good job of making her seem like a strong, independent character. But the way she's outed as a woman is Pigpen drops like a mouse on the back of her neck, and she starts screaming like a woman and frantically, pacing around.
And then she bursts into tears.
Yeah.
Oh, she is a woman.
Yeah, and it's even like when her hair comes down, they're still looking at her like they're not sure because she has the goatee. It's just wonderful.
No wonder these people were so easy to entertain back in the day.
No joke. It's a spaceship, it is. And so the Rose Theater's closed because the rule is you can't have a woman on stage.
Fucking Trump's England right there.
No joke. This was as equally progressive as it was regressive. So Viola, her day goes from bad to worse. And this is just any movie ever montage shit. This is
well, there's a lot of montaging in this movie.
Yeah.
I think that every time that they
It's a
reach
lot
a
like Wedding
point
Crashers.
where yeah. But even most of the second act is just a voiceover of Romeo and Juliet, the play,
mm-hmm.
over them rehearsing on stage, or Joseph Fiennes and Gwyneth Paltrow having sex. Fading in and out of all these things. That's just how you pad it out to a little over 2 hours.
Oh yeah, there's that scene where they're having sex and like practicing their dialogue back and forth. It's like, dude.
There's more than one scene that's that.
Yeah, and some movies pull that kind of shit off, like Shoot 'Em Up with Monica Bellucci and Clive Owen. Have you seen?
Yes.
Yeah. Talk
The
about
carrot.
blowing your load. Yeah,
Geely.
can't do
You're
it.
talking about sparkling conversation during sex.
Anyway, Viola's day, week, month, year goes from bad to worse as she is wed to Lord Wessex. And I do love his he doesn't give a shit what she wants. He's just like, come on now, let's get this over with. We've got to set sail to the colonies of Virginia. So the play, though, it gets picked back up as Burbage, who was, scorned by the love of Shakespeare on his wife, comes back and basically says, for the love of the art,
Right.
Yeah.
AMC says, okay, you closed the Regal, but you were not close the arts.
Mm-hmm.
We will play your movie here.
We will show the interview one way or the other.
We will honor your guest passes and your coupons.
So he opens up his theater. So it's back on. Romeo and Juliet will premiere. This time, Will's just going to fill in for the role of Romeo, not our lauded Thomas Kent.
Full on Shyamalan here.
Oh,
Where
absolutely.
He could have cast anybody else.
But he's got to be the hero.
He just goes, I guess I have to play the most important part in the play.
He's just rolling up his sleeves. Man, who would have known this would have happened, huh? He just put his arm around the fucking Jeffrey Rush. He's like, fortunately, we have a very good Romeo right here. And then it just cuts to him putting the suit on. There's flyers for this that are somehow whipped up overnight. Or not even that. It's like a fucking 4-hour window. And these flyers are, getting caught in the wind. One of them goes on right into Colin Firth's face after he's married. And quicker than he can turn around, Viola's already gone, heading to town to see this play. I don't know what happens here, because basically she gets there, Colin Firth gets there before the play starts, but then all of Colin Firth's men, like the local militia, I guess just hoof it on foot Because the entire duration of the play, we keep getting these cuts to them just kind of marching towards.
No. The people that are marching are the sheriff's men, not Colin Firth's men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because and that's because they figured that the sheriff was going to go, even though technically they haven't broken the law. AMC was not told not to put on display, but he's gonna go and start trouble anyway.
So long story short, Viola gets there and she plays the role of Juliet. So we have this as it was destined to be, as it were. As you would imagine, plays a hoot, goes off big, everyone loves it. Woo.
I think this plants the seed back in the old days of something that we still suffer for in modern day, which is dramas being celebrated much more than comedies. If you might remember, at the beginning of the movie, that the whole common wisdom is write a comedy will. Comedy is what sells. What people want is pratfalls and a funny dog in there. The queen laughs, everybody laughs, and then Shakespeare's like, but I'm in love, I want to write something that's tragic and whatever, and then he does, and it becomes a big success, and that's where basically comedies got screwed, and it's so hard for them to win Oscars now.
Yeah.
You will pick now, from then on, you would pick Romeo and Juliet over, I don't know, one of the bullshit Shakespeare comedies. I bet you that the queen was not present at whatever else he wrote next, even though she requested it.
So the play concludes. It's good. Everyone likes it. The sheriff's men show up to shut it down and arrest everyone there for indecency. Says if the queen was here, and it turns out the queen was there. I don't know how they missed her in her fucking dress that's 5 feet wide. So
there is no way that there had to have been somebody sitting either next to the queen, behind the queen, or right in front of the queen. That place was packed.
Or there's just like a big cloak over her, and everyone's like, I wonder if that's part of the play. So she's there and says, no one's doing jack shit. Colin Firth is there. He ends up watching the play, I guess. I don't know if you liked it.
There is a moment where the camera holds on him because the play is over. Everybody is clapping. There's close-ups of every single significant player. Jeffrey Rush is just fist pumping, and then the camera ends on Colin Firth, and he seems like he doesn't know if he needs to clap or not. And I honestly, it could have gone either way. At that point, I don't know what would have made me respect the movie more if it just embraced the ridiculousness of it all and just had Colin Firth admit
it should
that
have
he
showed
loved the
him
play.
like put his hands in front of him like he's gonna clap, and then faded to black a la Inception.
Credits.
A John Madden film. But no, we still have more to go. So the theater clears out. The queen's not going to do anything. She awards Shakespeare. She says, yes, this taught me the true meaning of love. Here's your 50 pounds. But she has to be the bearer of bad news as well, saying that anything that's bound by God, she cannot undo. So sorry, Gwyneth Paltrow, you're still married to Colin Firth, and you're going to go sail to the colonies of Virginia.
Because a woman's happiness is not as important as the arts.
Oh, no, it's not as important as God's will.
Well, that too.
Yeah. And so Judi Dench says something lighter next time, perhaps the 12th night. She gives the money to Gwyneth Paltrow, keeps calling her Thomas Kent, which I thought was funny. She's like, go fetch Viola, make sure this money gets to the right place. And she goes up, goes to say her goodbyes to William Shakespeare, and then we get the pitch meeting where they're just throwing ideas back and forth at each other for his next play.
He's like, how am I going to write if you leave? Who's going to feed me the lines now?
And then she's like, well, you have a wife, don't you?
Try talking to her.
Yeah. And she goes off. We have our tearful goodbye. He goes back to start writing. His next play is going to be about her. We get a voiceover from Joseph Fiennes about how he's found his inspiration, and she'll always be his love.
He basically says every play is gonna be about her. He's gonna be Adam Duritz. His songs are about just the one girl.
And then we see fucking Gwyneth Paltrow walking on the beach like Nicole Kidman in Australia. Like I just expect like a drone shot to go overhead. And then boom, a John Madden joint.
He taught us the meaning of love, allegedly. It's such a. I'm not much of a Shakespeare fan. Not even an aficionado. I know the movies based on his work, but I don't know. I think that this movie panders to the Shakespeare community, whatever that may be.
This movie panders.
But I do wonder if they actually felt insulted by what I ended up saying about Shakespeare, right? Not just that he was not as original a writer as you would think, but also he was just kind of the worst. If you were not somebody that was directly profiting from his work and his adventures, you were probably getting screwed by him. And that's not something that the movie addresses morally. It's just like, oh, isn't it funny that he was an adulterer? Isn't it funny that he was an irresponsible artist? They treat the fact that he cannot keep up with his deadlines as a joke, when really, what Jeffrey Rush is probably late on his rent. I mean,
like it's partially implied they like share an apartment or something, so it's like he's having to go into his pocket to pay Shakespeare's part of the rent.
Yeah, it bothered me as a non-Shakespeare fan. I can only imagine how much it would bother me if I cared.
Yeah, I do remember my British Lit course in college. The professor always talking about
that one time that Shakespeare thought that he had killed Marlowe.
just all like Shakespearean movies and shit like that, and how much they always get it wrong. Anyway, yeah, that was Shakespeare in Love, and it won a bunch of shit.
Like Shakespeare in No, as you refer. All right, well, let's do some real talk.
Let's do. I've been waiting for this all day.
My lady, the house is stirring. It is a new day.
It is a new world.
Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss.
Have not saints lips, and holy palmers too?
Aye, pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer.
Oh, then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray. Grant thou, lest faith turn to despair.
Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake. It's you.
Suffering cats!
Then move not, while my prayer's effect I take.
All right, we are recording for Real Talk for Shakespeare in Love.
I want to start off Real Talk with the immortal lyrics of Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead fame. It's all about the game and how you play it.
I mean, if Shakespeare himself hasn't proven that in this movie, then what were you watching?
So, yes, this is Real Talk for Shakespeare in Love. This is the portion of the podcast where, despite the ranking of the film one way or the other on Rotten Tomatoes, we express our true and actual sentiments towards it. Again, this is a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's up there. It's one of the higher ones we've done. That's not true. We've done a lot in the 90s. It's usually like the high ones we do don't range too much. It's usually the rotten ones. The fresh ones are usually from like 90 to 100.
It's a lot easier to find fresh movies that are 90 and up that would be good episodes.
Because rotten, we usually probably shoot for like between 40 and 0.
Yeah. In general, we do 30 and less.
Yeah, that's it.
For it to be between 30 and 40, it has to be a movie that would be a lot of fun to do.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this one's up there. And it was released on December 3rd, 1998. It was like 2 hours almost on the nose we watched. I read a few places it was like 2:20 and shit.
That's the director's cut.
More
boobies.
Yeah, that was enough.
A full frontal from Ray Fiennes. Not Ray Fiennes. The Ray Fiennes version of this movie is 2:20.
It's the audition tapes that they put in there. All right, drop them. Budget of $25 million, box office return of a little bit under $300 million. This one, took the world by storm. The 9th highest grossing film of 1998 was Armageddon 98.
If it was not nominated.
Okay. Well, it took me a second there to catch on to it. Let me see.
But that would explain why.
This is going to bug me. Yeah, it was Armageddon. Armageddon made $550 million.
That explains why Affleck didn't have as much screen time here, because he was busy saving the world.
Yeah. Oh, God. Godzilla was one of the top 5 grossing movies. I'm here, so I'm just going to... Armageddon, Saving Private Ryan, Godzilla, There's Something About Mary, A Bug's Life were the 5 highest grossing movies of 1998. Now, Shakespeare in Love was nominated for, I think it was like 13 Oscars, and it won 7. Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Original Screenplay amongst those that were won.
What's that scoffing at Gwyneth Paltrow's win? Who did she win over? I thought she was delightful in this movie.
Okay, so that brings us to my next point here. We have our quotes and stuff that we read. Actually, let's go ahead and let's get our rotten quotes out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's going to be a bit long-winded.
All right. So, rotten quotes, the 8%ers in this scenario. Paul Tatara from CNN.com said, "I just wish that the script wasn't so insistent on showing off. Shakespeare, even when he kowtowed to the peasants, knew how to quit." I mean, this is somebody who's not a Shakespeare fan and just was annoyed at all the jokes going over his head. Just say it plainly. Diana Albizu from Sensasign says, it's a Spanish review, so it's Sensacine. Says, "A good cast if you can forget for a moment the protagonist, Joseph Fiennes." Boom.
That was like the opposite of that Sandler swipe. Like, I'm going right to the core of this.
I want my Ray Fiennes. Give me Ray Fiennes or give me nothing.
Give me Fiennes or give me death.
Jonathan Romney from The Guardian says, "Sniping at what's already been celebrated as a major national triumph always looks not quite cricket. But Madden's film is transparently one of those things that the British do so well and the Americans fund so handsomely." I'm assuming he's British because he's writing for The Guardian. And then finally, this is actually a fresh quote from Chris Cabin from
That's one of those backhanded compliments.
Oh, dude. Chris Cabin from Slant Magazine says, "The environs and costumes look superb on the Blu-ray debut of Shakespeare in Love, making the sloppy, repugnant film they encase all the more."
Outstanding.
Yeah, the sloppy, repugnant film. Wow. Maybe he's talking about the transfer. I don't know. No, that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, I was about to say that. That's a heavy one.
I don't know. Chris Cabin, somehow he slipped that one through as a fresh tomato.
Okay, so yeah, if you're a first-time listener to the podcast, I apologize for the deep dive I'm about to do right here. If you listen to us, a long-time listener, anything like that, you've known I bring this movie up on occasion just out of my, I don't know if it's bitterness or... This movie changed the award season and like the way the Oscars are handed out forever, and in my opinion, for the worse. And so because of that, like I told Julio, and we'll get into this, I think I dislike what this movie did more than I dislike the movie itself, because I really don't have that big of an issue with it. But
you're like one of those guys that say Star Wars ruined blockbusters forever.
No, Star Wars invented that.
Yeah, but there's some dudes that are like, you know what, summer releases, now they're all about the toys, and it's because of Star Wars.
Okay, that's a flawed argument. Like, because the whole point is like, there was no way ever that anyone in the history of the world in 1977 could have predicted how big Star Wars would have become. That's saying that, when you say that, you're saying that the original Star Wars was released just to make toys, where it was just like, George Lucas was just like, well, let's see what happens. And the world was like, eh!
Right, but I think that the argument goes that if Star Wars hadn't done that, regardless of its intent, if the result of Star Wars hadn't been that now everybody is all about the merchandise when it comes to...
I'm going to go ahead and cut you off, because the intent of what happened here was to, like, corrupt the awards system. And I'm not saying that, like...
Shakespeare, like Tom Stoppard and Ruben, what's his name, and John Madden. He's like, no more football. I want to ruin the Oscars.
No, but I've heard that about Star Wars before, and obviously my naturalistic instinct is, like, don't talk shit about the original Star Wars. I'm not going to accept it.
I'm not one of those guys, but I've seen plenty of those guys.
And I appreciate you playing devil's advocate, because for the sake of that, it's going to need to be done. So for this, I did a little bit more research than I typically do, because I've read about this movie kind of extensively in the past. I wanted to find an article that kind of encapsulated some of the history around it. So for the first time ever, we're going to kind of go to the bookshelf, so to speak. And I'm going to read an excerpt from the story I found called Shakespeare in Love and Harvey Weinstein's Dark Oscar Victory. This was written by Rebecca Keegan and Nicole Sperling, and it was released in a special issue of Vanity Fair back in 2017. Now, skipping through the first few paragraphs, obviously the main thing when we bring up Harvey Weinstein's name, this was when a lot of that shit started to come out already. It addresses the first few paragraphs and the closing paragraphs, which I'm not going to be reading about, basically how he will obviously understandably so, forced out of the Academy, had to basically exit the industry in disgrace. And even Gwyneth Paltrow had a story about him that obviously wasn't as appalling or angering and disgusting as some of the other stuff that came out about him, but that's all stuff taken into consideration there. And then also, we've talked there's been a couple weird tangents in the past where we've gone off about this and kind of talked about the Harvey Weinstein thing. So yeah, when we talk, if I talk shit about this movie or if we say things, don't take that as, we're like downplaying or anything what he did during this time, before this, and after it.
Right. It's like, we know that he's done worse things that ruined the Oscars.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's just not as much fun to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, that gets sad. And, there's no debate around that. Like, you either...
I will not play devil's advocate there.
Thank you. Yeah. If you're someone that would debate it, I doubt that we don't want you on the podcast and don't want you listening to the podcast. So you
probably stopped listening when I said Trump's England.
Yeah. Touche. So getting to the point where I'm going to pick up, they also, the last point they had talked about before we're going to jump into this article here was at an original test screening, they had to basically go back and reshoot the ending, because it was originally like Viola was like inconsolable and really tearful, but they wanted to have an ending that was a bit more empowering than devastating. Which I thought the ending does play off kind of well, because she's the one that's like...
He's the one that's in hysterics.
Yeah, and she's more confident than that. Okay. So once the ending was tweaked, the movie tested off the charts with general audiences and won over the industry crowd at its New York premiere. A limited release opening weekend in 8 theaters brought in $224,012, a respectable showing that suggested a robust box office future. Still, Weinstein needed to win over one key crowd. At the Los Angeles premiere at the prestigious Academy Theater, the film's reception was more muted. Weinstein was concerned and mid-screening demanded an explanation from a colleague at the event. I told him, "These people are rooting against you to succeed, not for you to succeed," the associate said. Weinstein's challenge was to win over skeptical Academy members. To do so, he turned on the marketing engine that had helped him nab the Best Picture statuette for The English Patient and nominations for both Pulp Fiction and The Crying Game. Quick insert, I heavily resent that jab at Pulp Fiction. Only this time...
Are you sad that it's not so black and white, Alex?
Only this time, Weinstein was going up against Hollywood royalty in Spielberg. No-nonsense marketer Terry Press, then at DreamWorks, and a film that had been the frontrunner since July. By the time Shakespeare in Love opened in limited release on December 11th, 1998, Saving Private Ryan had been in theaters for nearly 5 months and was well on its way to making $481.8 million worldwide. "We hadn't yet had the situation where the grubby little people from New York dared to threaten the kings of Hollywood," said Gill. Gill here is Mark Gill, Miramax's LA president at the time of the release of Shakespeare in Love. This was describing the method of campaigning as hand-to-hand combat in the form of screenings, parties, and nonstop publicity. "We used to joke that working at Miramax was like working at a tiny labor camp with a nice lobby." Weinstein strong-armed the movie's talent into participating in an unprecedented blitzkrieg of press. "It all began with Harvey," said one publicist, "with a client in the film. I don't remember even feeling pressure like from the other studios. He was like, 'Can you do these radio call-ins in the morning?' He calls the clients directly and guilts them. He really was a kind of a beast." This is what Gill confirmed the studio's reliance on relatively cheap publicity. This was not saying to the stars, "Okay, you can go on a couple talk shows to open the movie and do a weekend of interviews on a junket, and thank you so much for helping," Gill said. "This was, good morning, you've got 3 months of shaking hands and kissing babies in you." Weinstein ticked off Academy brass by paying for a Welcome to America party for John Madden, who is British, at Elaine's in New York, and invited Academy members. Appearing to violate a 1997 Academy rule that deemed such receptions improper. He also employed numerous consultants to lobby the members and started negative whisper campaigns. "They tried to get everyone to believe that Saving Private Ryan was all in the first 15 minutes, said Press. "I said to Steven Spielberg, 'Listen, this is what's going on.' Steven said to me, 'I do not want you to get in the mud with Harvey.'" Weinstein played into the inherent narcissism of the Academy, its love of seeing actors and writers like themselves as heroic characters on screen, and he pushed the novelty of the film. As a literal love story posing what might have been the inspiration for Shakespeare's first theatrical hit, it made its mark instantly with many of us, said Tony Angelotti, Sorry if I mispronounced that. This was an Academy member and publicist whom Weinstein hired as a consultant on the film. It was also, at its heart, about making the creative process and taking that a step further, analogous to the filmmaking process. In addition to Weinstein's barnstorming strategies, Shakespeare in Love benefited from a quirk of technology, the addition of screeners on VHS tape that allowed Academy members to watch contenders in the comfort of their homes. With timing, technology, and Weinstein's brazenness on its side, Shakespeare in Love ended the 71st Academy Awards with 7 Oscars, including those for Best Picture and Best Actress for Paltrow. Saving Private Ryan won 5, including that for Best Director for Spielberg. When Weinstein took the stage that night to accept the Best Picture prize, it was an unorthodox move for a studio chief and one that rankled some of the Academy's members in its audacity. He delivered a speech thanking a roster of collaborators, including his brother, Bob, quote, my partner and my best friend every day. Despite the conventional pushback, Miramax's Shakespeare campaign became the model moving forward. The whole apparatus for campaigning became a cottage industry, said press. Harvey gave birth to it. It was a blanket commitment of resources. It was the first time, at least for me, that negative campaigning and trashing somebody else's movie became de rigueur. Gill confirmed that the negative speak was part of Weinstein's plan and doesn't apologize for it. Did it sway voters? Maybe. But there's no question that it was done and it may have made the difference.
So, when you watch Shakespeare in Love, not when you think about it, when you watch it, how much of this weighs on you?
A lot.
Well, that's a damn shame, Alex Mattis. I understand. I mean, we are human.
Yeah.
When I watch Shakespeare in Love, not that I watch it often, I haven't seen it probably in 10 years, but the thought of, oh, this unfairly won the Best Picture Oscar over Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan doesn't really come to mind until somebody brings it up, or if it comes up, it's just as in trivia.
It's not only that for me, it's the...
It made campaigning... Dirty campaigning.
It's how Melissa Leo figured out how to get an Oscar. Like it's how that worked. I don't know. And yeah, that's obviously not at all to say that there was no questionable decisions or like immoral calls or shit like that prior to this. But like to me, this is especially something during my lifetime I can point to and say this damaged the sanctity of this thing that I liked. And you know, obviously someone had to do that eventually because that's the way all these things go. But to your point, there's still a lot I can enjoy about this.
Right. That was because I don't think
it's not the fault of anyone in the movie.
Right. Everybody in the movie is doing what they were supposed to do, and I think they're doing it really well. And I also don't think that even the people that love this movie, I would imagine most of them would agree that Saving Private Ryan is a better movie. So maybe that's why it doesn't bother me, really. Because if I believe that Weinstein's campaigning actually fooled the world into thinking Shakespeare in Love is a better movie, that would probably anger me more. But no, he fooled the Academy voters, which is not that hard to do, apparently, if you go by just the history. I mean, the history of the best movie not winning Best Picture, that happens before Weinstein a lot. Like you just said it. So he figured out a more consistent formula of doing it, probably, and he dirtied up the game in a way that hadn't been dirtied up before. Mm-hmm. So fuck him, but not fuck Shakespeare in Love. I enjoy it as much as, you know, I would enjoy a romantic comedy about Shakespeare, which is halfway.
To that question, it's kind of like my thing with The Artist, where like I know it's fine, but like I watch it and I get mad because I'm like. And again, the Academy is like, what, 85% old white dudes? So
they're working on it.
I know they are. But let's be honest about
back then, especially.
Yeah. I know they're working on it, and God bless them for it. But that's always a thing. I get way more emotionally like wrangled about these things than I should, because it's like, yeah, of course this one. Of course fucking the Artist one. Like, that's, to them, that's what they think works. And I never knew this was like the first year they had screeners, like VHSs and shit. I thought that was cool.
It is even before the article, before you read the article, I mean, I had it on my notes. This is Academy catnip because it has everything. It's a crowd pleaser. It's historical piece, well-known actors playing small roles, fresh talent emerging as stars. This is Gwyneth Paltrow's coming out party.
Pretty much.
She owns it.
She kept her head on in this.
Yes. So it's Shakespeare, so it's culturally relevant.
Mm-hmm.
It's of course, I think even with the Weinstein push, I mean, obviously, I guess it was never
Was
going
Affleck
to be
hot yet? Was he like really hot? It was 98, so not really.
Not really, but I knew who he was.
Yeah.
I mean, Armageddon. He was already cast in Armageddon. He already made Armageddon, so.
Yeah, this is one of those that like it would be way funnier if Ben Affleck did this in like 2005 or something like that. But even here, I mean,
he was an Oscar winner by now
for
Good Will Hunting.
Okay, that came out before this. Okay, yeah, and he's not. He's funny. It's one of those things like for Ben Affleck being a British person, you kind of wished he was more over the top than he actually was. So
yeah, I stand by what I said in Contrarians Corner. He looks out of place. I like him. I'm fine.
Oh, he's definitely out of place.
But he just doesn't look anything like anybody else.
Almost everyone else in this movie, I could probably guarantee has done like actual theater in their life, and I cannot say that for Ben Affleck.
It's just so weird. He doesn't look period accurate. And I don't know if they just need to dirty him up a little more.
But it's all like a movie with fucking Colin Firth and Judi Dench, and Ben Affleck's in there too. Like, what the fuck?
This is, man, can you imagine you put I always go, my go-to for great actor now is
Josh
always,
Gad?
I mean, the Gad could conquer this. It would take a lot of work. But no, I was thinking Fassbender. To me, every time somebody asks me,
God, yeah.
Fassbender would get it's not just the accent, but he just, you can buy him as the all-star actor of the older times.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think that, yeah, definitely the nomination was probably a no-brainer, and it was just a dirty campaign and put it over the top. On the other hand, Saving Private Ryan it's a rough watch, and I love that movie.
Yeah.
But maybe the Academy just didn't feel comfortable.
They couldn't have Sizemore up there, man, on live TV. Don't know where it would have gone down.
Okay, but you scoffed when you mentioned Gwyneth Paltrow. Who was she up against?
I didn't mean to scoff at her. It's because my eyes went on to Judi Dench, and like, obviously Judi Dench is a fucking beacon of hope and like, impeccable actress. But this movie's like 2 hours long. I was being genuine. She's on screen for about 6 minutes total.
Right.
And I know there's been a couple cases of supporting acting where it's only been like for like 15-minute segments of it and stuff like that. But to me, that's just kind of knowing what I know of all that. And then that on top of it is like, and God bless Judi Dench, but I wouldn't call this like one of her more.
Well, I mean, she's great for what the movie demands of her.
She could be holding a can of Miracle Whip and be like, eh? And it'd be like, God bless. So yeah, I wasn't scoffing at Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth she's always kind of come off as really smug to me in interviews, which I don't really think that's much of a surprise. So I kind of always have that, like we do as humans. That's why we read like People and shit like that. We always kind of want to know what celebrities are like. So I'm kind of like, with her, but like, you know how much I love Contagion. I think she's really good in that. And
because she dies?
No, she's like, her acting is very believable.
I think she's great in this.
That's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah, she is great in this. So I wasn't scoffing at that. I'm just kind of trying to backfill my I have friends that are like Gwyneth Paltrow monologue.
Joseph Fiennes, not nominated. Not even the power of the Weinstein machine could make that happen.
No. And
but
it's
he's
not,
good.
Not from lack of trying. It's just he's very forgettable, and he's in the unfortunate situation of being like
the junior version of...
in the fucking gallery, like in the peanut gallery with a bunch of fucking stars.
I think it's fine, but I think I know of just one other movie where he plays a significant part. Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law and Rachel Weisz. Have you seen it?
I have not.
He's the other part of that love triangle. He's pretty good in it. And then he was on that TV show, Flash Forward. I think I never watched it, but I remember, oh, look, Joseph Fiennes made it to TV now.
That guy.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of, you would think that this is a movie that would have made him a star if something was going to make him a star.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. This was it. Poor guy. It's like...
everybody else got to reap the rewards. And
he read that article and was like, I still didn't get anything. Coming back around, it's funny you brought up Jude Law. Kenneth Branagh, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Jude Law were all considered to play the part of William Shakespeare. Now, if any one of them had played it, they would have swept the Oscars that year.
Branagh's too old. Even back then, I mean...
Yeah. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis would have still been, 40 then? Is he that old? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Day-Lewis would have been... No, the only one I can see is Jude Law.
Yeah.
For the kind of movie they seem to be going for.
And that would have been too ridiculous, the beauty of him and fucking Gwyneth Paltrow on screen. Russell Crowe stated he was offered the part by Harvey Weinstein, but he would have to sign a package deal of 4 films. Crowe tried to still get the part of Shakespeare, but wouldn't sign anything. The writer of this, what we say his name was? Mark something or other?
Norman something? Is it Mark Norman?
I hope so. Yes, Mark Norman.
Norman.
Writer of Cutthroat Island. That's what he's meant for. He conceived this in 1988, and it was basically a lot of shopping around for a decade to get the movie made. And when it was originally supposed to be made, which I think it was 92, that's when they had Julia Roberts attached to it. And that fell through. Now, I
don't know that I could buy Juliet Lewis. Julia Roberts.
No, I could buy Juliet Lewis.
Anything. No, I don't know that I could buy Julia Roberts as period.
God, no.
It would be... Then Affleck would have seen Right at Home.
He would, yeah. Affleck would have seen, fucking... he had just come from Broadway onto this.
And I like Julia Roberts, but it's just a type.
Mm-hmm.
She could surprise me. But have you seen that movie, Mary Riley? It's a Jekyll and Hyde adaptation, but told from the point of view of Jekyll's maid or something.
I was hoping you were just going to say just told from the point of Julia Roberts.
Well, basically.
Oh, okay.
Julia Roberts plays his maid, and so I want to say it's definitely a period piece, and she probably has a British accent, and I haven't seen it since it came out. I saw it in theaters. It was not great. Malkovich plays Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes.
That part, it's great,
yes.
Right? And, I don't know. But I think...
My body is trembling. I am becoming him. Yeah, to your point, is she buyable in that?
As far as I can remember, I don't remember her being the problem with the movie, just kind of the way it ends.
So one thing that does work extremely well for this is the movie's packed with heavy punchers, but the two leads, and because we watch it now through 2018 or 2019 lenses, and of course Gwyneth is going to overpower. But then neither of them were big enough to overpower, so they play off each other really well, and you don't feel it becomes a movie about one or the other.
Yeah, I think I remember watching it in theaters, and at the time it was just that actress from Seven. Mm-hmm. So I do remember that feeling of, wow, she's really good.
I just imagine you going into watching it in Peru in the theater, and she comes on the screen, and everyone goes, "What's in the box?"
Siete.
This last piece, I got to get in my info out here. Gwyneth Paltrow saw the script at Winona Ryder's office table in 1997 and asked if she could read it. Paltrow got the part without telling Ryder she was going for it.
She pulled a Shakespeare.
The former friends haven't been friends since because of Paltrow's selfishness, later winning an Oscar for the part.
But then Winona Ryder got on Stranger Things, and life is good again.
What a cutthroat business. I mean, fuck, man. Especially with how things were back then in Hollywood. I don't blame fucking...
How things were back then? How things are?
What?
I mean, when you say, I don't blame her for the way...
Oh, I'm sorry. People weren't as willing to just... I feel like it was probably a harder industry for women. Not to say it's still that much easier, but you know what I mean?
They were not banding together the way they are now?
Apparently not.
Winona Ryder's like, you can have that script.
Or no, now they would read together, and they would say, we're auditioning as an act.
And they would go, I like that part, but that's the guy. Rewrite it.
It's like a Portlandia skit. I just thought that was pretty funny, or more fascinating than funny. Something else I really like about this, it's very, very, very small, but I thought it was a really nice touch and really something that is in a sort of, we talked about with Llewyn Davis, but a nice touch, and you can tell the person that wrote that is someone who's been around that industry like that. The part of the boat, like the rowboat, and the guy like it's like, oh, I'm a writer too. You want to read this?
There's a lot of stuff like that throughout the movie that really is what I enjoyed, because I was not kidding. Contrarians Corner, I'm not a Shakespeare guy, and I'm guessing you aren't either.
I mean, I enjoy the stories for what they are, but yeah, I'm not. I can't recite shit page and verse, nor do I go out of my way.
I can't read it. That's it, and it may be that just English
like
is
the way
not,
it's written.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can't, and there's a lot of that here. So
Like my thing with musicals, like where the dialogue is sung, like I can't do that.
yeah, if the dialogue is just is Shakespeare, then it just I really can't get into it. But I know a lot of people that love it. I mean, it's Shakespeare. At this point, I've given up on trying to appreciate Shakespeare the way that other people appreciate Shakespeare. I'm just like,
I'm sure you can still appreciate his contributions without like going in and
yeah. But what I mean is, this is not my jam.
Yeah.
So there's long stretches of the movie that is just they're just made for Shakespeare fans. Those montages that we kind of made fun of in Contrarians Corner, where it's just his words and voiceover as people get close-ups of them being enraptured by his poetry. I can appreciate it in the sense that I know what the movie's going for and I understand it, but on a personal level, it doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
So reading Romeo and Juliet or hearing the dialogue from Romeo and Juliet doesn't really do much for me. What works for me is when I see when they actually put on the play and you get the abridged version of the play and they you see all the greatest hits and the audience reacting to that stuff. That's what I really like in the movie. The idea that I don't know how true it is, but that this little town at least had no concept of what a tragedy was.
Yeah.
And then Shakespeare he tricks him into going to see this because everybody thinks it's going to be a comedy. Well, no, he says tragedy in the flyer by the time that it's done. But anyway, nobody's expecting this. And it ends in a horrible way where they both kill each other and all this stuff. And the reaction where the crowd is silent until one guy starts clapping and then it's a big hit. All that stuff, that's what I dig. The Shakespeare itself aspect of it, it really takes me out of the movie. When we're watching it now, every time that it went to that well, and it goes to that a lot, I was just
this
like,
movie could have easily been 20 or 30 minutes shorter.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna look up the quotes now. But I understand that it's not like the Shakespeare fan community is something to laugh at. They're bigger than me.
Yeah, I was about to say they outnumber us.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's a smart move from the movie to cater to them. You know, if you're gonna make a movie about Shakespeare, they might as well make it as Shakespearean as you can. And
yeah.
So
and
all the
again,
Shakespeare
if
references.
you do that also, it's not going to hurt your chances with the award givers. Yeah, I thought the acting was good. I wasn't kidding. Where like Colin Firth as a bad guy is just amazing because he's the kind of guy, he just seems to me, at least in his acting, is able to have a sense of humor about himself and the way he carries himself, specifically in like his bad guy roles and shit. So, I mean, yeah, there's no shortage of acting or actors in this movie. We covered Affleck being out of place. It doesn't look right.
It doesn't. The only thing, I think the thing that redeems it a little bit is that his character is so much fun because I like that he's the big actor that again gets tricked by Shakespeare into thinking that the play is about him, and instead he's a character that gets killed halfway through and doesn't come in at all during the first act.
And Tom Wilkinson, his arc is phenomenal.
Yes.
Of like he demands to have a part, but only gets the little part, but then like just fucking nails it. Like spends so much time obsessing and memorizing it. And Jeffrey Rush, I mean, cat's out of the bag. He's a good actor. I looked up. I can't remember John Madden. I'm going to have to look it back up now. Anything else that he did that I was?
I know what his follow-up was because that trailer was everywhere.
Did
after
it say
Shakespeare
from the
in Love?
director of Shakespeare in Love?
Yes, of course. And I never watched the movie, even though I said I should watch it because it's from the Oscar winner. But I couldn't bring myself to it. Do you remember seeing the trailer for Captain Corelli's Mandolin?
No.
Nicolas Cage playing an Italian, hamming it up.
With Penelope Cruz.
Maybe he's not Italian. Maybe he's an American in
a
Italy.
bippity boo boo.
The trailer has a scene where he's on his knees singing, I think. I don't know. It looks terrible. Someday I'll watch it because, it's Nicolas Cage. But,
yeah, don't get me wrong, and especially coming from a place of 28%. The writer, the big other thing he did was Cutthroat Island. I know I've mentioned that about 7 times now. but all things considered, and then the rest of this dude's career, John Madden, it definitely seemed like this was the sum of its parts, and the actors involved, and I mean the follow-up was obviously a studio being behind it, but the actual bell-to-bell movie, I think, is just kind of a perfect storm of you have a Shakespearean type director. It looks like he fell into trouble when he started trying to make like Americanized movies or things like that. But obviously, a cast of people that have respect for the source material, 2 hungry leads, yeah, and a really good script. So it shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody that what resulted from it was something good.
It was a good movie.
Yeah. Again, like, and it's not just my usual Mattis. It was over 90 minutes, so I don't like it. It's the Mattis rule, as Reed says. But it could have been shorter easily because, like you said, imagine if it was. But then again, that's just me being selfish. To me, it would have worked better if a lot of those montages were cut out and it was just more meat of the film, and it would kind of gone by faster. But like you said, there's probably people that fucking lived for like those montages.
That's what makes the movie for them. Which I mean, that's
so.
fine.
I guess that should speak to the overall quality of this, in that it's not made for you or I at all, but we're still just like, yeah, it was a good movie.
Yeah, I had fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed all the behind the scenes theatrical stuff. It was funny. It had, I think, the emotional moments land. At the end, I loved the ending. I remember that. I mean, I remember beat by beat because I haven't seen this movie that many times, but I remember the ending. I remember that she still goes away at the end, and that's.
And you know me,
really good.
I live for that shit. Where like there's the life on its side tragic ending, and of course that's Shakespearean in itself that it's a tragic ending. But I wouldn't call this cleansing or reaffirming watching this again and kind of talking about it the way we have. But again, it's one of those things. It's so hard to, like I said, I have my qualms with what this represents, but like that's not Gwyneth Paltrow's fault. That's not Joseph Fiennes' fault. It's not even John Madden's fault or like, anyone in the movie.
He did his job.
He did. They all did well.
Yeah. That's why I go to bat for it. Not that it comes up that often anymore, right? But
you're just like, come to think of it, it's only you that ever brings it up, Alex.
Well, no, the way it comes up is always when people, if we're talking about Saving Private Ryan, and then somebody will start talking shit about Shakespeare in Love, because in its very particular way,
it's funny that they're
linked,
married.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't talk about one without the other at some point. It comes up eventually. So then I have to say, but it's not a bad movie. It just didn't deserve. It was not the best movie of that year.
No.
And it's definitely not better than Saving Private Ryan. But it's still a good time.
Yeah.
Unless you're just not into period pieces. And
it really doesn't age that bad. Like the really heavy 90s tropes aren't that apparent. And there's good comedy in it. And it's not just shoehorned in there for the sake of it. So
are boobies.
Yeah, that's not good. The Burbage with his Rosaline, and she's just continuing to ride him. He's like, "Madam, would you cease?" Something along those lines, and that really tickled me.
She's been plucked.
I think we just found that funny.
Well, no, Colin Firth's reaction to that, and honestly, his reaction throughout the movie, because he gets a lot of play as far as reaction shots.
It's fucking Darkwing Duck looking over his shoulder reactions.
Well, there's that scene when the Queen is, I guess, evaluating Gwyneth Paltrow, and they have their back and forth about theater, and Colin Firth keeps interjecting, kind of apologizing for Gwyneth Paltrow's boldness, and the Queen just keeps shutting him up, and she keeps cutting into him, and the entire court is laughing. That's, to me, one of Firth's finest moments in the movie, because he's playing an asshole through the entire movie, but here he's just cowering.
Yeah.
So that makes it great.
Yeah, him running out of the church. I was like, why is no one finding this weird that he's doing this? Oh, he does it all the time. Yeah, so that was Shakespeare Falling in Love, and
that was the alternate title.
Yeah, I mean,
and then Zuckerberg goes, not Zuckerberg, Timberlake goes, lose the falling.
Shakespeare in Love, much cleaner. Yeah, 92%. I mean, it's it's a dead center B, I guess, if I was giving it a letter grade.
Yeah, I think 3.5 right now. Honestly, I would have said 4 before just from memory. I had forgotten about those sequences in the movie where I just tune out, and there's quite a lot of it. So as we were watching it tonight, I was just remembering, oh yeah, that's right, that's what I didn't like about the movie, because usually what I think of is the last 20 minutes, the play itself and how good that ending is. So that makes me think of a 4-star movie, but really I think it's more like 3.5.
And
could be 4 on a good day.
One of the things I read, just to kind of wind this down, they were specific about the time frame they used, because there's like this 5 or 6 year gap where really no one knows what Shakespeare was doing. So they like made it during that time, so like, you know, historians and shit couldn't be like, no, that's not right. Which I thought was a pretty clever. That's a pro wrestling move right there, man.
That's not right. Ben Affleck was never Queen Elizabeth's times. I just saw him in Armageddon.
Sound argument on that one. Yeah, but again, this is like the whole crux of all this. Even when we're talking about this in Saving Private Ryan, I mean, you can't. Trying to view those movies through the same lens, you're not going to get as many laughs out of Saving Private Ryan as you do this. In honesty, it's probably been 5 or so years since I've watched that, and it's probably going to make me go back and revisit it, because I do remember that movie being kind of rough, but really good. And then Tom Hanks, Mark, I'll watch anything he does twice, except for Larry Crowne. Okay, so that was Shakespeare in Love. That was episode 77 of the Contrarians. We're going to continue on our awards season arc for the next episodes, taking us clear up through award season. We're doing the up-down effect. So next up will be a Razzie Best Picture winner, or Worst Picture, excuse me. Are we doing Star Wars or Star Trek next?
Star Trek 5. Oh God, what was the subtitle? I think is it The Undiscovered Country, The Undiscovered Planet, The Final Frontier? It might be The Final Frontier. I don't know. It's a bad one. Allegedly. I haven't seen it forever. I remember watching it when I was a kid and enjoying it. So this should be interesting.
Yeah.
It's the Enterprise. Oh, it's directed by William Shatner.
Oh, God, yes. We're in for quite the treat. Winding down as we always do, heading into our plug section. First and foremost, we want to thank the Festive Years for providing our opening and closing tracks. Our opening is Last Stand, closing Summer of '99. Check them out online, Bandcamp, iTunes, all that good stuff.
Hans Rothgieser is the man responsible for our logo. He's great. He has a podcast called Nacion Combi. So you can contact him to tell him nice things about his podcast if you speak Spanish, because it's a podcast in Spanish about Peruvian stuff. Or you can contact him because you want a logo, or maybe you want comics. He draws comics. He's on Twitter at Mildemonios, MILDEMONIOS. You can also email him at mildemonios@hotmail.com. And yeah, he's great.
So for my plug this week, it's been the talk of the town, and I'm only one of two, so I'm in the midst of the arc of the...
Motherfucker, you're stealing my plug. That's fine.
Okay, well, we can launch the conversation here. Obviously, the Ill-Fated Firefest has produced 2 documentaries, one on Hulu, one on Netflix. I haven't watched the Netflix one yet. It is... you've seen both of them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, Fire Fraud on Hulu references the marketing company Fuck Jerry, or Instagram, whatever. That shit made me infuriated that I'm considered a millennial, because it's like, you know how much I tweet. I love Twitter and I love the internet and video games and all that shit, but like hearing people talk about like, you know, influencers and shit like that, it just it makes me dry heave. And it's like, I'm one of those people too that I'm a lazy, a lot of times get by with lowest effort given, but like when I watch some of those people, I'm like, I feel like a hard worker. Like I feel like my work ethic is through the roof. So in a lot of ways that was kind of reaffirming. But to the point, that Fuck Jerry company, they're the ones that made the Netflix documentary when they heard the Hulu one was coming out.
I don't think that you can tell, because I watched the Netflix one first.
Okay.
And I didn't find out that it was from the Fuck Jerry guys until I watched the Hulu one, because at the end of Hulu they're like, dude, do you know that Fuck Jerry's producing their own documentary? And the guy goes, okay. And I think that guy's in the Netflix one too. So there's a lot of crossover. Like I was telling Alex when we were talking about it earlier, I think that you only need to watch one. to get really all of it.
Get the gist.
Yeah, to get the gist. And if you're only going to watch one, then watch the Netflix one because I think it's better made. But it was...
The Hulu one does, and I was going to say, I can't imagine there really being spoiling on Netflix, so say what you like, but the Hulu one, the one I popped hardest for was him, I forget the gentleman's name who organized it, but him proposing that he had all the villas, but he lost a box of keys that had the... It was one of those things when it happened, I didn't know about, because it made me realize, as much as I think I'm in a social media bubble, I'm not, because I didn't remember hearing anything about that until it went wrong. Like
I remember the same thing.
So I knew nothing about it until that, but then going back and researching and like watching that and then seeing all the shit people were being fed. One, the amount of money people were spending on it was asinine, and then two, like people thinking this was a real feasible thing was, and obviously that's what the documentary tackles.
Yeah, I think that I can't be completely impartial because, of course, which documentary you watch first probably affects how you feel. The one you watch second is always going to feel like
Tombstone, Wyatt Earp.
Leftovers. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which one has Kevin Costner? Okay, that one's the best one. But to me, I think it's a Netflix one that really makes the case for it being... okay, so the point of this is that it exposes how social media, how empty the whole social media / influencers thing is, right? Well, when you idolize these people that really have nothing going for them other than they have a whole bunch of followers, you believe them, you follow them, whatever, then you are liable to just be sold anything. You're sold like an empty package and you pay millions for them, or thousands, whatever. And that's great. I don't think that either of the documentaries goes after that point as hard as they could, maybe, because they're more interested in entertaining. But I can pick that up. The reason I love it is just the fact that I'm human, and I just enjoyed so much seeing this whole thing fall apart.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, save for the locals got screwed. But people like McFarland and Ja Rule and all those assholes surrounding them, I couldn't wait to see them fail. I knew that it was a failed venture because I remember that from when it actually happened. So the main reason I watched the movie was to see these assholes fail, and it delivers.
It's very comforting seeing people that are so brazen and eager to show that they're smarter than you fall on their face.
Yes, and they're just terrible people. I'm sorry. It's not even that they're bad business people. They're just... It's very candid filmmaking. That they let cameras record him, and then they let that footage be used in a documentary. And I'm sure that if I had a camera crew follow me 24/7, you would catch me saying things that maybe don't paint me at my best.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of it for it not to be an accurate representation of who they are.
I was about to say, there's only so much you can say is taken out of context.
Right.
Yeah.
No, this is just... it's not just that, oh, well, you happen to be drunk with your buddies at this point. This is you all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bad for you. I relish the fact that you fell on your face and you're going to prison and your buddies are having trouble getting work and whatever. Because...
That's what you get for using people. Not even like... So the people that bought tickets, they duped, but like up until that, they just used and stepped on so many people to get to that point.
Yeah,
so.
Did you see the whole thing about I think I was telling you about it, the GoFundMe campaign for the lady that was a caterer? I mean, that's great, right? Maybe the best thing to come out of the documentaries, besides my selfish enjoyment of those guys going to prison and getting in trouble, is the fact that it drew attention to all the people, the honest working people that got screwed out of jobs and money and time by these guys. And so there's this GoFund campaign that suddenly raised a whole bunch of money for that lady, and hopefully there's more to come. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I do love I loved the thing about like people that were tweeting from it. They were getting cease and desist letters immediately or like notifications.
Man, they're the worst. I know you see a lot of it in the Hulu documentary too, that just the way that they handle that, the guy that's in charge of the marketing that sent them, when they're talking about the commercial they shot and how he sent like a 10-page email about what the score should be like, and it's just all this pretentious bullshit that goes on forever.
Yeah.
That's not criminal behavior. That's not. I shouldn't take anybody to task over that. But I'm sorry, you're an asshole and you're a douchebag.
Yeah.
I am glad that you're being ridiculed now.
Yeah. And maybe, I mean, this is something I've been struggling with, and this is getting way too existential, but like,
I want an island.
I'm like a huge animal lover, but I still eat meat, but still like wild animals in their habitat. And like in the Hulu one, it was showing them like pouring beer on like the fucking pigs.
The pigs,
and
yeah.
I was like, dude, I love beer and I love animals, but don't mix the two. Come on, you have some fucking common courtesy. That's fucking dickhead. The Hulu one, I had to look it up because I always forget the name of the group. But first thing I did this morning when I woke up, because I fell asleep after I watched last night, was the Hulu ends with "Build Me Up, Buttercup" by the Foundations.
Right.
I cranked that very loud this morning when I woke up. Always reminds me of something about Mary at the end.
I was about to say, so there's something about Mary song.
That's right. But yeah. And then did I talk about my VGA cord that I got for my Dreamcast? Have I talked about that on here yet?
No, but actually I should ask you about Magic City because that was your last.
I'm a few more episodes into it. There's one where Danny Houston is like just naked swimming, and he's just
see...
goddamn. On a scale of 1 to Fossbender, he's rocking in like a solid 7. Yeah. It's getting crazier and crazier. It's one of those things of like, I use the phrase junk food television pretty fittingly for that. I can't, where it's at right now, I can't watch episodes back to back. So I'm kind of watching one a week. So, but I think I've only got 1 or 2 episodes left in the first season. So once I finish that, I'll give a full recap of feelings on that.
But what's this cable?
I've made the poor decision of one of the things I want to get into this year is to kind of take effort and money away from other things that I do, retro gaming. So I'm like super into Dreamcast, like, and my goal is to like really build my Dreamcast collection. And man, I could do a whole episode just talking about that console. Anyway, I got a cable for it. It's basically what I found. The reason I bring it up is just because, so basically Sega intended for that system, like their idea 98, 99, and it's applicable to this because that's when the movie came out. That's why I brought it up. But they had envisioned HD TVs before they were released, so that console was supposed to be played on HD TVs. And so there's still third-party companies that manufacture these VGA cables for them. And the problem is HD TVs have passed that by, and a lot of them don't have VGA ports anymore. Fortunately, I've got one that's like 5 or 6 years old that still has one. And so I got it, and so basically it's converted my Dreamcast to HD. And it's just, I was like sitting in my room by myself at like 1 a.m. on like a Friday when I got it, and I got home late from wherever I was, and I hooked it up, and I was just like in my room, like never ending story, just yeah.
So it looks good. It looks better than it did before.
And it looks incredible, yeah.
Because I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this. Let's say that you hook up your Super Nintendo right now to your biggest TV. Mm-hmm. It looks like shit.
Just using the VA cables and stuff, or
using anything really. I don't think that.
I forget what the technical name of that is, so don't crucify me. But basically you have the red, white, and yellow.
Yeah, they're the RCA cables.
RCA, thank you. Yeah, and and then it stretches it. But basically, what this VGA cable does for the Dreamcast was it gets the intended optimum video quality out of it, converts it back to 4:3, and like sharpens everything, and like the sound coming out of it's better and whatnot. It's really weird. Because, yeah, all other consoles from that era, like even the PS2, if you hook it up to like a modern TV, it kind of looks like shit.
So it remasters your game, basically.
Yeah, but the craziest part is like there's companies that make those, make like for Super Nintendo, there's a company that makes an HDMI converter for it. It's like $60, but like...
but it still looks like...
It sharpens it and makes...
Oh, it does?
But yeah, it doesn't look like stretched and all that. But point of that is like... That was all stuff people figured out how to make originally. Like, Sega intended this to be the use of it, and it's like...
And then fucking Harvey Weinstein had to ruin things for him.
Harvey Weinstein came along and said, he gave a PS2 to everyone in the Academy. You're going to play this, and you're going to like it.
All those screeners of... I don't know what the fuck is a PlayStation 2 game.
PS2 original release. It would have been like Madden 2000, SSX.
Oh, Madden 2000, because that ties in perfectly with.
Oh, goddamn! I didn't even think of that.
You get the Madden two punch,
Fucking A, pal.
Shakespeare in Love and Madden 2000 all together. Your screener.
It's
mail.
like it's the VHS and then the PS2 game like bundled in. So I preface this, or I say this, I go through this whole diatribe to preface that over the next year of episodes, there may be reoccurring check-ins on my Dreamcast collection and what I've come across and what's new with it. So it's a very dumb, lucrative, expensive potential new hobby I've picked up. So
well, you're funneling. You're not adding more money.
Correct.
You're funneling money.
Yes, and it's already like my funds are already hilariously different than they have been the past 3 years because I'm not going to WrestleMania. So it's like it's going to be weird when there's like an extra $2,500 in my bank account. But I got to be smart. As I'm told as an adult, you put that into savings.
Yes.
So, you own a home, you're married.
Oh God. Everybody's like, what's it like to be married? It's a change your life. No, it's the same. You know what changes your life? A mortgage. That's really no, that's not true. You know what marriage? This is just completely going into personal life. It has nothing to do with Shakespeare in Love, other than I love my wife, I guess. But
yeah, no, we'll figure out a way to bring it back around.
Okay, so the thing about being married is just that I can't die anymore. Before, I was like, you know what? In the end, as long as I outlive my mother, I'm cool. Because then, if I die, it's like I take my debts to the grave with me, and it'll be a sad occasion for those who outlive me. But overall, it's just I'm not responsibility-wise, I'm in the clear.
Yeah,
I can't do that now. If I die, then it's just my wife has to take care of my shit, and I can't do that. So I need to at least outlive my wife, who's younger than me. So that's a rough one. Now, that's really the big change.
So Julio will be sure not to drink the poison.
Excellent.
He will not make the mistake that Romeo did. No,
definitely not. But if I do drink the poison, then my wife's definitely stabbing herself because I'm that wonderful.
Or it's Rosaline just inheriting all those leftovers, as we'll say. So that was Shakespeare in Love. That was a Best Picture winner for. I'm not even gonna say for better or for worse. For worse, it was a Best Picture winner, but it wasn't a bad movie.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's such a complex take.
And
that's the real talk kind of shit.
That's gonna be the quote of the episode. People are like, "What the fuck? I gotta listen to this now." All right, awesome. Well, that is going to wrap it up for this episode. That's going to do it for us here on The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. And for the next episode, next time we see you, we will prosper.